This conference will now be recorded.
This is Barbara Fugelberg. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Can I ask everyone to stand so we can do the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Play ball.
Play ball. Okay. All right. So, Darlene, can I ask you to do a roll call and do the homeowner statement, please?
So you're going to get Mike. Darlene went to the restroom real quick.
Okay.
Barbara Fugelberg, Board President.
I'm here.
Vice President, Roberta Ernest.
Here.
Board Secretary, Marie Beshen.
Here.
Board Treasurer, Becca Paulson.
Here.
Board Directors, Steve Deal.
Here.
And Board Director, Cindy Evans.
Here.
Homeowner statement period. In person, speaker may speak for no more than 2 minutes. If attending virtually, please mute your audio. Please use the chat option for your questions. Comments should be addressed to the concern of the motion before the board takes formal action on the item under formal discussion on the table. Negative comments directed at residents, employees of the association, or board of directors will not be allowed.
Thank you. So the first thing on the agenda, a standard agenda, is approval of the meeting minutes from the April 13th, 2023 Board of Directors meeting. Can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes.
And a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any questions from any member of the board regarding the minutes? Are there any corrections or comments that need to be made? Hearing none. Anything from the residents? Did you have any comments about the minutes from the April meeting or any corrections? I'm assuming if someone's coming up to the stage, you'll let me know. With that, I'll go ahead and all in favor of approving the minutes from the April 13th, 2023 board meeting, I'll say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next thing on the agenda is our financial report. Is Dawn present to provide us a financial update?
Barbara, Dawn is not here today. She went home sick, so I'm going to give the financial report. We're approving the financial statement for March 31st, 2023. Our operating cash is $783,000. Reserve $4.276 million. Activities has $164,000. Food service $9,800. Clubs $149,966. And our asset improvement reserve is $955,461. Are there any questions? If not, then I move to accept the March 2023 financials.
Second.
We have a second. Any questions or any comments from any board member regarding the March financials?
No.
Anything from any of the residents? Okay. Seeing no comments from the residents or any of the board, all in favor of approving the March 2023 financials, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
We also have
Okay,
the financials.
go
If I could forward with those. Operating cash is $901,591. Our reserve is $4,296,444. Activities $152,386. Food service $97,32. Clubs $142,160. And our asset improvement fund is $955,942. Any questions on the April financials? I will say that just for your information, the whole year, since April is our year end, our whole year will be undergoing the annual audit in August. Some of those numbers may change due to audit findings, but I don't believe anything of significance.
Good. Thank you.
I move to approve the April 2023 financial statements.
Can I
Second.
hear? Move in a second. Any questions from any board member regarding the April 2023 financial package? Anything from any of the residents? Seeing none, hearing none, the motion on the table is to approve the April 2023 financial. All board members in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. We don't have any committee reports. We don't have any club reports. We don't have any old business. The purpose of this meeting today is on new business. The first motion on the table is to approve some roofing estimates. Steve, could you make that motion, please, as liaison to the BGNM?
Do we have the final numbers for Mike before I make the motion?
Yes, we do. I just clarified this morning in our meeting with Phoenix Roofing and Repair that the total amount would be $385,000, $385,099.99. No cents. $385,099.
And that's Phoenix?
Re-roofing of all of a third of Town Center and all of NC1, metal and flat roofing. The other estimate was from Renco Roofing, not to exceed $639,243.
I move we
So Steve,
approve. I move we
Go ahead.
approve the bid from Phoenix Roofing at an amount of not to exceed $385,099.
Can I hear a second?
Second.
Great. So Steve and Mike, do you want us to give us a little background on this, of the conversations that you've had both with these companies and with the BGNM committee?
First of all, from the BG&M committee, we had hoped we would have enough money to do NC1, period. The cost of roofing materials has declined to our benefit, and we have new bidders involved in the process. I asked Mike earlier to verify the bid from Phoenix Roofing because the cover bid was a little high, the difference between the two bids, and he has done that. And I would like for him to explain the difference and the fact that we took core samples on flat roofs and that the primary difference in the bid was the metal roof because the other vendor subcontracts the metal out. Phoenix does it themselves.
That's correct, Steve. Just to reiterate on that, we had two estimates, one from Phoenix Roofing and Repair for the re-roofing of 1/3 of Town Center and all of NC1 building. We also had a secondary estimate from Renco Roofing to re-roof the same sections. We do have a discrepancy of $200,000+, and that was nerve-wracking. And of course, doing deeper dig into our estimates and what was going on working with these companies, those discrepancies were in the metal, which surprised us even more. The metal companies, a lot of these vendors, from what I understand, they subcontract the metal roofing and they'll do the flat roofing or the shingle roofing. Phoenix Roofing and Repair can do all of it. They have the ability to do the roof start to finish for one vendor. And so we had a meeting this morning at 9 o'clock, Darlene and I, and got with Jeff and Josiah, the owners of the company, just to make sure that we got our numbers right. We didn't want to, be caught halfway down the road and say, hey, we need a few $100,000 more. They did reassure us that is the full extent of 1/3 of the town center and all of NC1, replacement of all of the 24 gauge standing seam metal, as well as the reapplication of elastomeric and acrylic coatings on all of our flat parapet roofs around all of our existing air conditioning units. Of course, there's a contingency set aside of 10% for any kind of plywood work that we may have to do underneath the existing roof. But however you look at it, I think the reality is that Phoenix Roofing and Repair really would like to do business with Happy Trails long term. And they're coming in competitively. He was assured us that he is able to make his profit enough margins that he wants to do business with us at that rate. So I don't have any hesitation as of our meeting this morning with Phoenix Roofing and Repair.
Thank you. Steve, do you have any additional questions for Mike after that?
No.
Roberta, do you have any questions regarding this bid?
No, I do not.
The board members in the ballroom, Marie, Becca, or Cindy, what are your questions or comments?
No, I don't have any.
I'm good.
And I see that we have Tim Garrity online. I don't, his only question was, Tim Garrity is the chairperson of the BGM committee for the residents information. He wanted to know whether they provided an estimate for finishing the last 1/3 of town center. We can talk about that in a second. I did listen in on the BGM committee meeting that met on Monday to review these, and the committee has some really good they dove pretty deeply into the contract and valued their opinions. And as with Mike, they were concerned about the discrepancy in both of them, but now I feel comfortable with it. Just as an FYI, it was clear to, I think, all of us that we probably will need to be putting some regular maintenance of that Estamere coating on our agenda for in the future. I assume it's very similar to us doing seal coating on our asphalt, that we need to be coating these roofs for future. My concern was two things. One of the companies had been in business for a short period of time. Mike allayed my fears that really this as their name had only been in business a short period of time, but the people themselves actually bought out the former company, so they felt strongly about that, and they've not had any complaints in the Better Business Bureau, so all of that's good. So I'm real comfortable with that. Are there any questions from any of the residents regarding these bids?
There was one so far in the room. I'm sure we have multiple here. Well, the first one was warranty costs, and that was a great question. So both of the companies offer a 10-year manufacturer warranty, and both of them, one of them is offering us a 5-year contractor warranty, which is Rinco Roofing. Phoenix Roofing is offering a 3-year contractor warranty on the roofing. But both flat roofs and metal roofs come with a standard 10-year manufacturer warranty on them.
Okay. I saw on the chat that is there a time to be completed? Is that established in the contract? Mike, could you speak to that? We discussed it briefly.
Yes, I can. We're looking at no more than a 3-month project here for completion. They estimate that if they were awarded the estimate, either company, they would like to start on our flat roofs in a week. I know that's scary. And then they want to start on all the metal roofs within 4 weeks. So we should be, either way, we should be moving here quick on the project. So we should be able to proceed well before the end of the summer and the arrival of all of our residents here.
Just as a reminder, go ahead.
Podium.
Go ahead, please.
Come up to the podium.
As that person is coming up, I just mentioned that the BG&M and Steve and Mike chose NC1 and that 1/3 of town center specifically because NC1 has been leaking a lot, and that roof has been leaking, so it really has a higher priority. And we've also had multiple leaks in the area of that 1/3 of town center, so those have higher priority, and that's why we've selected those. So Person at the podium, I can't see you exactly. I see it's a man, but name and lot number, please.
Yes, Terry Bader, lot number 953. Mike, do we get a performance bond when we do these large projects?
I don't know what the past history has been, but typically no. We're not receiving a performance bond on these projects. I know that there's another question here in regards to contractual terms, completion dates, things along those lines that will be established and will need to be established before we can finalize anything. This is an estimate strictly for us to proceed forward with any kind of contractual terms and conditions. We did have a couple hiccups with the roofing that we have going on and our completion times and performance bonds. So we do need to ensure that we're covering our bases there, and I will make sure that we do so that we don't get ourselves in a bind.
Any other residents have any? Go ahead.
I think that's it here, Barb, in the Performing Arts Center.
Okay, thank you. Perfect.
Call for vote.
So any other thing from any members of the board? Seeing none, the motion on the table is to approve Phoenix Roofing to do the third town center and NC1 at the not to exceed $385,099. It's a dollar amount, and usually anything regarding expenditure of dollars, I ask for a roll call vote. Darlene or Mike, could you do that, please?
Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marie Beshan,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Steve Deal,
Yes.
and Cindy Evans,
Yes.
and Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you very much. We look forward to getting that started, and I know we will not have the same issues that we've had before. Just as an FYI for the residents also, that in the past we've used a different company and we used an oversight group. The board feels that at this point in time we're not needing an additional oversight group since Mike Nice is our operations manager and he feels confident that he can handle the project with all the other things that he's got going on. So that's good. I'm just scooting ahead to the next item. The next item is for a proposal for regarding pool shore installation. Can I get someone to make a motion, please?
You go ahead, you motion it.
I'll move that we accept the proposal from Pool Shore at the amount of $1,850 a month to install a pool automation system at all community pools. Can I get a second?
Second.
So Mike, Nice, you're on the hook here a lot. Can you give us some background information on this?
So yeah, absolutely. Poolshore is a company that we met at one of the association trade shows, and they really wanted to come out and see our facilities, see how they might be able to assist us. One of the biggest things was automation to our pools. Not something that we were primarily seeking. However, after talking with the vendor, discussing the opportunities it will bring us, and also services provided by this company, we not only will automate our existing pools to allow for better control of the chemicals in these locations, but also save ourselves about $7,000 a year in chemicals. The service provided with Poolshore will not only install all of the automation equipment on all of our pools, existing pools. They will own the equipment. They will maintain the equipment, and we will pay them a set monthly rate to include all chemicals. We spent roughly $28,000 in chemicals this last year, and with this contractual term, we'll be looking at spending around $22,000. So it's going to save us a few bucks, and it's really going to help out the time spent not only from our maintenance staff. I know a lot of folks know that Chad Baker is our pool technician slash maintenance employee, and he is a fantastic asset here. However, if we could lessen his time and the chemicals were underway for a long weekend, we wouldn't get to the point where we had to shut it down or drain it as frequently as it is, because the pool would stay more balanced. This automated system will feed in the chemicals as it's needed into the filtration system so that if it starts to spike at some level, it will feed into that material. A lot of this is automated through, apps and things like that. So there'll be notification as well if one of our pools is starting to take a dip. So we won't have a long weekend and show back up to a green tinted pool. So that's just the goal, is just to better our assets, improve our assets, and proceed from there. There are no cancellation fees. There's no contractual terms. With PoolSure, our relationship will be standing until further notice. At any point in time, we wish for them to remove any of the existing automation system. It won't affect any of our equipment. Our equipment will go back to the setting it is in now.
Thank you. So let's start with board members who are in the ballroom. Marie, Becca, or Cindy, do you have any questions regarding this proposal?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good with it after our discussion yesterday.
Okay.
Planning.
Thank you. Cindy?
No.
Okay, good. Roberta, do you have any questions or comments on this?
Yeah, just a comment that I think Mike said, the amount of money we spend on pool chemicals is $28,000 roughly a year. That comes out to $2,340 a month that we spend on that, and that does not include the cost of the employee labor. So going to $1,850 actually does save us some money, and then all the added benefits that Mike talked about. Just a statement.
And I will, if I can, Barb, I will add that this is going to take our pools from a granular chlorination to a liquid chlorination, which will also be better on everyone's skin. Ultimately, the salt pools are still generating based off of chlorine, so those salt cells are functioning off of that chlorination. So I think it's going to be better all the way around, even for the chemical version, chemicals on your skin and the irritation of your skin.
And just to clarify, Mike, you said this yesterday, but this is for other people that are in the audience or online that might not have attended the planning meeting. If we approve this and it goes through, there's no downtime while this is being installed. So it will not affect any pool closures.
That is correct. No closures to any of the pools at existing locations will remain open during installation of this.
Steve, do you have any additional questions or comments?
No, I do not.
The one thing I would just let the audience know is that the information that Mike shared with us on this proposal, everything seems to be have an app associated with it. So the nice thing about this is it'll be constantly monitoring all the chemical levels in our pools, and so our staff or theirs can react quickly to it. But more importantly, we know that there have been complaints from some of the residents. I got last year that they felt they were getting a rash from some of the chemicals in some of the pools. So if we get any complaints or comments like that, we'll be able to more quickly address it. So these apps will really be helpful for us. So are there any questions or comments from any member resident in the ballroom or any resident online? As the person's coming up online in the room, if there are, I see an online one. Is there some sort of accident and the pool gets contaminated? Will this system correct the problem?
Ron Zarowski, 586.
Where are they going to store this chlorine?
In the pump rooms.
Where?
In the pump rooms for the pools.
In drums?
Yes, in
Who's
drums.
going to be in charge of it?
The automation system. They'll deliver chemicals every week. So
How much storage are they going to have? Like one drum, or is it going to be multiple?
No, so they're going to have tanks. The tanks will feed. There'll be tube tanks that will feed the actual automation system. And in the smaller pools, they're looking 13-gallon. Town Center pool will be a larger tank that will actually be installed in that pump room. It'll be freestanding. It's going to sit there. It's going to have your liquid chlorine and your liquid acid that are going to be in those two tanks. And all of our other chemicals are stored in the pool room down at the car wash. That's currently where the majority of our chemicals are for these pools. Thank you.
So Mike, do you see the question on the chat? If there's an accident and it gets contaminated, will the system correct the problem?
No, it won't. I mean, ultimately, you still have to be prepared for any circumstance that you're going to have to, say, sanitize the water. If there's any incident that's in the pool, and we have to go through the standard procedures that Maricopa County requires us to do. And that's going to bring up the pool to a certain parts per million, which is the pool would have to be closed. We would have to go through, bring the chlorine levels way up for a certain period of time in order to meet standards. So it won't correct those issues, but what it will correct is that it will feed itself as needed. So suntan lotions, things like that that are affecting the density of the water are going to be corrected quickly and easily with a little addition to chemical at a time, so that we're not going once the water level has already reached zero, hypothetically speaking, and trying to react to that zero versus it being 3, needing it to be 3.5, if that makes sense.
Another question was, is this going to include the hot tubs?
Negative, not including the hot tubs.
And then another person commented that it's good because they've been having issues to the point where he or she couldn't even enjoy the pools lately. So that should fix the problem. Any other comments from any resident in the ballroom? Seeing none, we'll call for the motion. The motion on the table. I'm sorry, was there someone?
We have a comment coming up here.
Perfect.
Meeting Bethune, 1621. My question is, C2, right? Now, have we looked into the cost to all pools with salt water? Would it be cheaper than buying all this chlorine? Or do we have to use chlorine in that?
You still are using chlorine on the salt pools.
Yep.
It's still based on a chlorination tablets and whatnot that are feeding that salt system. There's pros and cons to it. I don't know that there's been deep discussion, and Barb can probably say that there's probably been more over the years prior to my time. It hasn't really been a whole lot of discussion on the salt pools and bringing more to a salt pool. But as of right now, that would be the only location that has any setup for a salt service for that pool.
Okay, and then you had mentioned the car wash. I was told it'd be open in June. This is almost the end of June.
Yes.
And I don't see anything going on over there.
Correct. We have not received the parts for the car wash. So it will be open as soon as the vendor can get everything in. I've talked to him within the last week. He said that he's still on schedule. The manufacturer said that we're all good. So we're moving there.
Okay. And too, I'd like to find out, do they turn the heaters off in the summertime on the pools?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions from any residents in the ballroom? Okay, so the motion on the table is to approve Pool Shore to install an automated pool system in all of our community pools at the amount of $1,850 per month. We'll just go to all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Motion passes. Okay. It wasn't a big amount, so that's why I didn't do a roll call vote on that one. The next thing on the agenda is a motion regarding the strong room software. Can I get a motion on that?
Sure. I move to approve the use of strong room software to process and pay association invoices and print checks electronically.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. So is Darlene in the room by any chance?
I'm right here.
Okay. Do you want to give us some background on your experience with these types of systems and how Homeco uses strong room in particular?
Sure. As a general manager at a company in California, we used a similar software program. It wasn't strong room, but it was very similar. And how it works is the vendors can upload their invoices to the software program if they so choose. If they choose to still mail them in, our accountant, Don, would get them, upload them. They would get reviewed and coded based on our budget, and the board would review them, approve them, and then the checks would be cut. And it saves on, especially during the summer and when we don't have enough board members to sign checks here, we'd be able to do it electronically. So we have the 4 signers. If they're, for instance, we had an issue last week, none of them were here. Luckily, we didn't have checks that were processed. But in this case, if we had strong room it working, we wouldn't have had to worry about that. They would have just been processed as usual. Now, it does save time for, as far as paying. The vendors get paid quicker. So that's a plus for our vendors. They're not waiting 40 or 60 days to get paid.
Thank you. Yes, Darlene and I started this conversation before I left for the season, and Dawn gave us some information on it. This eventually would potentially would cost us about $40 to $50 more in hard costs associated with it, in actual cash, because there still would be some printing charges. But basically, it saves us a lot of time. Particularly for Dawn, in preparing all the checks, printing the checks, and getting to the point where the board members, the 2 board members who would need to sign it would sign it. So we really believe it's going to save Dawn some time and be a much more efficient process. And particularly as board members travel, regardless of whether a board member is seasonal or lives in Happy Trails full time, even the full-time board members are allowed to take a vacation periodically, and sometimes that all bunches up at the same time. So I see this as a valuable service which will make it streamline the process the board members go through, not add any more work for the board members, but significantly decrease the time spent by Dawn. What other questions or comments do any other board members have? I'll start with you, Roberta. You just took a sip. Maybe I should let you swallow.
No questions. I'm good with this.
Okay, Steve?
I'm good.
Okay, Cindy?
I'm good.
Marie?
I'm good.
Becca?
I'm fine. I had a few, Arlene short for a little while, and with Dawn, and we went over some ideas for internal controls that I was concerned about. So I think those have been resolved as well. So I'm fine with the program.
Good. And this will help from a personal perspective. I know my time on the board is short, but Barbara Fugleberg is a little long to sign, and so this will be save my time. Some of you are smarter and you put in your signature as just your first initial. I didn't do that. Any questions, comments from any resident that's in the ballroom or any resident that's attending virtually? If you could put your comment in the chat line. Any residents coming up in the ballroom?
Negative.
Okay. With that, again, since it's not a significant amount, we'll just call for a regular vote. All in favor of going with strong room software to process and pay association invoices and print the checks electronically. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Motion passes. Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is, and probably why we've got such a good attendance, has to do with anything moving forward regarding the chuck wagon. Can I get a motion to that effect?
Yeah, Barb, I will motion that we proceed forward with a 6 to 9 month trial contract with Chef Peter while encouraging and waiting for a volunteer group to develop a business plan for consideration after that trial period.
Can I get a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to proceed with discussion with Chef Peter about proposed 6 to 9 month contract, and at the same time asking, we know that there's a group of volunteers who are interested in running it for a formal business plan. So let's start with the board first on questions and comments. Let's start with Marie. What are your questions and comments regarding the motion?
Well, my comments are that we have received a very detailed, lengthy proposal from Chef Peters with all his financials and pretty much everything he gave to us in verbal comments and stuff. It's detailed out. He does want to utilize the volunteers. He's willing to do a trial basis, which is contracted in the sense of that, you know, he's going to give us a break, and it says it's if we don't want it to continue, we can say goodbye. He wants to utilize the volunteers, and hopefully the volunteers will discover that it works out. It also gives the time for the volunteers to come up with a proposal as well to match it. It is during the time where it utilizes his staff and puts them to work, and that's the reason for the expediency on this. He does not want to lose his staff. He treats them like family, and that if we wait until October, November, which is what I'm hearing from some people, wait until everybody comes back, he will lose his staff. And he understands that, yes, we're dealing with summertime when there's not very many people here, and he's fine with that. And that it gives the staff work, and he knows that it's less income, but at least it puts everybody to work. And it gives us desert rats an opportunity to use the chuck wagon as a restaurant. So in my opinion, it's a win-win.
So Becca?
I agree with everything that Marie said. I will say, I've been through the business plan. I've been through his financials. He looks like he is an extremely viable business already. He's been making money. He knows what he's doing, at least from what we have seen. He's been in business a really long time. To me, again, it's a win-win right now because at the moment, at least for desert rats and not until the season, there is no other alternative. And I think he is worth an opportunity to show what he can do.
Cindy, I'd like for you to weigh in on this.
Sorry, did you say Cindy or?
Cindy.
As much as I support a volunteer run program, it's come to me that Becky Wells will not be participating in the chuck wagon going forward. That is a huge loss and one that will take some time to resolve. She played a huge role in the recruitment and scheduling of all the volunteers. So that's something that will have to be addressed. Having Chef Peter in now gives summer residents a place to dine, and it gives the residents an opportunity to pull together a really viable plan. And if we can do that, then there's review by the board and a decision to be made. So I have to say at this moment, I have to stand by using him to run our restaurant.
Thank you, Cindy. Steve?
Well, in more ways than one, I'm the thorn in the side, the thorn among all of you roses. But having said that, I don't have any issue really with looking at this. My issue is that we asked residents to respond to a questionnaire and a survey, and they did that. And we have done very little with that information. This new information came along as a result of a town hall meeting at which there were a couple, 300 people at. At that meeting, Roberta was concerned that we were we're going to go ahead with the concerns expressed by the 500 plus people that had filled out the survey. Well, we're not doing that. And in my world and dealing with the public, when you ask for information and people provide it and you don't pay attention to it, you're asking for trouble and you better expect a blowback. And so from that perspective, I'm not in favor of changing until we have addressed the concerns that were issued by the residents in their response to the survey.
Thank you, Steve. Roberta, your comments?
Yeah, so my only concern was to ensure that we gave the volunteers an opportunity to put together a business plan that would be understandable and address some criteria that we had talked about previously, as in like yesterday. Um, Chef Peter did supply a very comprehensive business plan. He did present a very good option at the town hall meeting, and had he presented before we did the survey, I'm pretty confident the survey results would be a little different. Yes, I understand where you're going with that, Steve. I totally respect your opinion on that. But again, an 11% response in one way does not necessarily mandate a direction. I have received many emails and conversations before I left by people that had either had trouble responding in the survey or had changed their mind. So ultimately, the board needs to make a decision that we think is sound and good for the community. And if this allows us to have a stopgap for 6 to 9 months until the volunteers can collectively put together a comprehensive business plan, and then allow us to weigh that against what Chef Peter has given us or may be able to do to make a decision, I'm for that option.
Thank you. I appreciate all of the comments here. And I, unfortunately, I'm the type of person that I don't really see things as black and white. I really see situations as a both and versus an either or situation. Do we do this or do we do that? And I recall an email that I got from a former board member, I think he was on the original board, that said, it reminded me that really what a lot of people are reacting to is the fear of what they're losing, not necessarily what they might be gaining. And if we go back to all of the things that we've heard comments from the residents, really the love of volunteering and volunteering in the chuck wagon, which both Steve and I have done. So we both can attest to that it is a lot of fun to volunteer there. But as they've said in many town meetings, they really view the chuck wagon as the heart of the community. They really like being able to use the room after hours. There are concerns about the BYOB issue, and there are concerns about security. All of those things, all of those comments, the concerns from the residents, I do believe that we can address in this. The BYOB issue is something that is not hard fast. It has to do more justly with the footprint that he would be discussing with the Liquor Control Board of where he'd be selling booze and where he would not. If you had a function in NC1 and the restaurant was open, yes, you can still BYOB in NC1 or NC2 or any place else, or even in the courtyard. So I believe all of those issues will be addressed. The security is something that we always have to look at, security in our facility, but we don't have any evidence to show that anytime outsiders have been in our community, the security has been a problem. We don't have any increased incidents on Vendors Day. We don't have any increased incidents whenever we've got a function going on from activities in the ballroom. The being able to use the room after hours, that is something that Chef Peter has said that he'd agree to as long as the room is kept clean, the cleanup afterwards. That was an issue with the prior folks, and they would agree to letting it be used. It wasn't until some of our own residents didn't leave the room tidy that things went south very quickly. So I agree with the rest of the board who've said that what we've heard after the survey, which was a point in time to get people to poll the residents as to what their opinions were. It was a poll to get people's opinions. At that time, people were still pretty hot over our selection of the Bison brothers, which we were too. But really to get a pulse of where you at. They got new information after Chef Peter was there, and they've used his services. And what I've heard from all of those residents is that they really like Chef Peter. They like the food, they like the quality of the food, they like the service, they like the scope of food and all. So in my mind, we don't have a lot of risk in going with a 6-month contract with him, and where we can work out all of these details, which we know have been areas of pushback from the community. The proposal that he sent to Darlene had some ideas on how he could utilize the volunteers. And there were some really good ideas that I think can benefit all of us, not just anyone who volunteers, but they can benefit from our community. I hear people in our long range planning survey results that talk about that they really love all the amenities and that the chuck wagon is an important aspect of it. And at the same token, they want to keep our monthly dues at a low rate. And I believe that the residents are really unaware of the amount of money it costs us to run the chuck wagon. And for us to be able to cover those costs and maybe get some money in addition, I think is the board to be doing a wonderful thing for the community. So with that, I think I spoke a lot. You want to put me on mute, I know. What other questions or do any board members or comments the board members have? Becca, do you have anything else?
No, I don't.
Marie or Cindy? Steve, Roberta. I'll look in the chat here as any resident can come up and at the microphone. I'm going to scoot up on the chat line to see. Well, we got in there. A lot of people are saying yes to Chef Peter. Want to know how much are they going to pay us per month? We've not. Chef Peter has given us a proposal. We have not even begun to think about negotiations of the contract. And prior, we were told that most people would best to be able to do things via a flat monthly fee. We know that Chef Peter is open to giving a percentage of revenue in addition to a fee. So we don't know the exact amount yet, because as we've said, the motion on the table is to move forward. The motion isn't to accept any contract because it hasn't been written. Then someone asked, why are we not open to an ad hoc committee as requested by the residents before a short or long-term contract is signed? We believe that we've got a good business plan from Chef Peter, and that's why we'd like this. We'll be asking for a group of committee, if you will, a group of people, residents, to come up with a business plan so that they can run it themselves in the future. Having been a volunteer at the Chuck Wagon and other positions, current residents are not interested in this. You may find enough to start the season. Do not think there'll be enough the following years. Highly consider the Chef Peter option. Another person said very low response to the survey. That shows the numbers interested. So an ad hoc committee has until January so to put in a business plan that depends solely on volunteers. That's from Tim. I would assume we would ask for that business plan before January. We'd want it obviously before any short-term contract with Chef Peter. Roberta, you're shaking your head as you would agree with that.
It would have to come in by December in order to put it so we can weigh it together before the short-term contract with him would be up.
And as another resident said, responses to this survey were low, but that's not unusual and still reflects how people feel. Agree. Just acknowledge that what we as board members heard was, we heard the results of the initial polling survey of what people felt. But after Chef Peter was there, we really received many comments from residents who said that if I had heard Chef Peter's presentation first, I would have voted for Chef Peter. Another person said another aspect is that the HOA will have rental income and the equipment is aging. is the contract have Chef Peters replace. I'm 100% in favor of Chef Peters. Again, the specific issues regarding replacement of equipment, specific issues of the contract haven't even been started. But we know that there's both repair, there's ongoing maintenance, there's repair of equipment, and then there's actual replacement of equipment. What we've all been told is in reality, you rarely have to replace equipment in the big ticket items in the kitchen. It's mostly repair and maintenance. And as it stands now, the current contract that Chef Peter has, he would be paying for part of the paying the repair and maintenance of the equipment. If any vendor wanted a brand new piece of equipment, they would have to purchase it. And then if the contract went south, they could take it. But any HOA who has a restaurant, what we've been told is that if that contract goes away, you still want to retain the equipment. So you want to have some responsibility for ensuring it's being maintained as it should be. Another person said they appreciate Steve's concern. He believes Chef Peter's presentation changed their mind. Another one would hope the contract includes all the promises made, no outside catering, use of the room in the evening, proper liquor license to keep BYO events, to name a few. We'll discuss that. The whole issue that person that says no outside catering, I'll pull the board here. I'm assuming, I personally am in favor of Chef Peter doing catering on the outside. Roberta?
Yes, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Okay, Steve?
No, I don't have a problem.
Okay, Cindy?
I don't feel like we can tell him not to. So I think it's part of his business model.
Marie, Becca, do you see any problem with allowing or not allowing him to do catering?
Catering is fine. I mean, he caters for us and gives us a deal, and he caters us. It's fine. It's a catering kitchen.
Yeah. And Becca, I'm assuming agrees. Yeah, it is. We don't see any issue with that. Obviously, we would want to monitor the impact that catering business has on our community. So one of the things is we did talk very initially, Darlene talked initially with him about how many trucks he would have on site. And Darlene, can you speak to that? I don't recall exactly. I think it was just the one truck.
Just one van-sized truck, not a large truck.
Right. So not his food truck or anything like that, just one van-sized truck. Okay. If the manager with volunteers was working, we wouldn't be in the situation we're presently in. Volunteers are getting as fewer new volunteers are, and the Chef Peter is still going to use volunteers. I think the 6 month is too short. Full season is over 6 months. So yes, that's why we're talking between 6 and 9 months. That we'd like to be able to, if the volunteers can come up with a good plan, that maybe they could start in January, which is our Happy Trails revenue in January, February, March is what makes the chuck wagon have any possibility of having a positive bottom line. We always lose money October, November, and December. So for the volunteers to be successful, that'd be a good time. But if Chef Peter wants to shop, maybe 9 months might be better. It'd be nice to have the restaurant open during the summer for his full timers. Yeah, and a restaurant professional with proven success is a very similar gated community is willing to give us a shot, and let's move forward with Chef Peter. Okay. Is there anyone at the microphone, and then I can finish these in a second?
Quite a few.
We have people standing in line here.
The rest of the things are pretty much the same. So let's go ahead and have the people at the microphone go ahead and speak.
My name is Bob Walls, lot 2369. We had Chef Peters here yesterday. As far as I'm concerned, I'd give him about a 2 on that. I had to go home and cook some more food because there wasn't enough food to eat. I thought the taco dinner was terrible. We had no tacos. And I would not vote in favor of him. I think the board should hold off till next winter when the residents get here. To vote on this, and before we sign any type of contract, that contract should be proposed to the whole Happy Trails residents, so we know what the contract's all about. I don't think Chef Peters is coming in here for his own good to help Happy Trails. I think he's doing it for his catering service. As far as I'm concerned, I don't want him here. I would volunteer, and I have volunteered for 10 years in that chuck wagon. I will continue to volunteer as long as I can function up there. I think the social activity that we're doing by us, we are making enough money to make the chuck wagon functional. And I guess I don't see any results in that. We'd have to talk to Jack Walker, I guess, that ran it, and Mac that ran it to see how much profit we made. I know when Cindy and Becky ran it last spring, we made a profit on there. So that's my comment. I just think we should hold off, the board should hold off till next fall to make a decision on anything about Chuck Peters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Next.
Trudy Skelton, Lot 413. I don't know if the board is aware that the fellowship uses the chuck wagon every Sunday morning. It's full of people. We offer coffee and snacks. Do you know if there's a day that he's planning on not having the chuck wagon open? It
would be Monday.
If he could change that to Sunday, it might fix a lot of problems. But just keep that in mind, that it's our chuck wagon too. And we just need to work that out.
Thank you, Trudy.
Sharon O'Leary, Lot 602. I've said my piece about the activities that take place in the chuck wagon, and I heard Chef Peters say, you know, you can use the chuck wagon for your activities when I'm not open. Well, obviously, if he's having dinners, he's going to be open until after 7 or 8 in the evening, and not very much happens after 8 here at Happy Trails. Most of the games that are played and activities that take place in the chuck wagon take place during the day or in the early evening, and that would just be eliminated. And when he said, you know, you can do it on Monday as long as you clean up after yourself. Well, I hate to tell you, but there are some people here who don't clean up after themselves, and that will negate that activity just because of that. And the other thing is, Barb, darling, did you actually say that if we make money off of leasing the chuck wagon to Chef Peters, that our dues won't go up?
No. Please don't interpret that. What I'm saying is it would help So let's back up here. We know that this community needs a lot of money to run. And you know, having been on the board, we're typically only allowed to increase rates by 6%. We know that all of our reserve items that the board has to approve are going up significantly more than 6%. So we have to look for other sources of revenue to support the clubs and any other thing that needs to occur. So just like we asked for the asset improvement fee to be passed, and that's an additional source of revenue. Any extra money we would get from leasing out any service, like if we put in a rented, I was going to mention a spot, and I shouldn't do that because then you'll say Barb said to do this. Any way we have an increasing revenue so that it can help with our expenses is a good thing.
I agree, but a profit with a volunteer chuck wagon would also be good.
I will comment on that. They didn't pay any rent. They didn't cover. Well, they made money, but they didn't have to pay any expenses except for the food.
Who are you talking about?
The volunteers that worked in the chuck wagon last year.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
see what you're saying, but I'm
I'm,
just saying that
I'm
our
going to say
dues,
something very unpopular that's been bothering me about this whole thing. We need money. This resort needs money. It's 35 years old. Things are breaking down. People want beautiful chairs and tables and umbrellas out at the town center area out there. They want new, I want, we want new chairs and stuff out at the pools. We want this to look like a resort. It takes money. And in order to get that money, there's only three ways to do that. Special assessments, higher HOA fees, or income. And how's that income going to happen? One way is the chuck wagon. Now, how are we going to get that in the chuck wagon? If volunteers do it, it's food. Okay, are they going to pay rent? Are the volunteers going to pay rent? Are they going to cover the utilities? Do you know how much the utilities run? Around $6,000 to $8,000 to $10,000. Are they going to bring in that much food? Are you going to pay that much in food? When you say they made money last year, they paid for their food and a little bit more. They didn't pay the utilities. They didn't pay the maintenance on you guys ask about the maintenance and the repair on the
Equipment.
utility, not the utilities, the
Equipment.
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 They didn't pay that. We did. We didn't pay, they didn't pay the repair and the cost of replacement. We did. And you're asking, did Chef Peters or any other vendor, are they going to pay for the insurance and the repair cost? We do. Volunteers didn't do that. We are. So come on, think about this, folks. That money's coming out of your pocket. And it's either going to come out of your pocket or an outside vendor's pocket. Which do you want? And that's what I want you to think. Think long term.
Roberta, did you have something to say?
Maynard Bethune, 1621. Now, your statement says that, well, if we don't make enough out of the chuck wagon, we'll probably open up the pools for people to come in and pay to get into our pools then. That would be the next step, right?
Oh, no.
Or charge for parking.
Please.
Okay, I'm up here because I've been here 3 years, and in the 3 years I've been here, we've been going around and around about this. You hand out flyers and say, everybody fill these flyers out so we know how you feel and what we should do. Well, we do that. 500 and some turn them in, and you still don't go by that. Well, that's not enough of a majority, and we think they're wrong, so we're going to do it our way. You're up there to do what the majority wants, not what you want and what you think. That's not what you're up there for. And another thing, as far as Chef Peters goes, 2 years ago, when he was trying to get in here, nobody listened to him. He never come out, talked about what he's going to do and how great he is. And all of a sudden, the last meeting we had people crawling out of the wood saying how great this guy was. Well, if you were at the dinner last night, that dinner was terrible. Wasn't worth the $10 we paid for it. And also, he had a trailer. He put a trailer out here when he was negotiating the last time. It sat there for 4 months. Now that was during COVID. So what I'm thinking is, and he had it plugged in. It was a refrigerated trailer. He plugged it into our power, and he probably had the groceries that he bought from the semi loads. I don't know how many semi loads he got. So we paid for the power to keep his food cold. I'm thinking. So, get him in here. We couldn't get that trailer out of here for 4 or 5 months. And if we don't like him, how are we going to get him out of here?
We evicted.
Thank you. Next.
I want to clarify, Mike Rugland just said online that trailer was not hooked up to utilities. I wasn't here at that time, so I honestly can't say. So we need to make sure that the perception of a trailer out in the parking lot does not necessarily mean it was hooked up to utilities. according to Mike Ruglin online.
It was not hooked up to utilities.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, Donna, Wisdom 379. The survey that was sent out and only 500 people, correct, responded? 500?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So 500 people responded. That is not, first off, the majority of the people that live here in Happy Trails. Sorry, folks.
25%.
The other problem is if you had trouble getting through to do the survey, there were surveys in the front office to be picked up, to be filled out, to be put down. So that being said, we still only had 500 people. And if I'm understanding, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, please. Out of the 500 people that did it, there were 300 that wanted the manager, cooks, and then the volunteers to help. And then there was like 62 that wanted all volunteers. Is that correct?
About.
It was a little less than 300 that wanted the manager with volunteers. So that's what it was. Manager, a paid manager with a cooking staff and the volunteers to run the front. Correct. Okay. So the volunteers that stood up, out of everybody that I heard, 90% of those people, well, I want to cook. I'm a cook. I'm a cook. Well, can't all be cooks. So, and I know that there were problems with that too, with the keeping the food warm and all of that. I've heard, I've listened. So if we bring in Chef Peters and the volunteers, all those volunteers, not happy with it, are they going to boycott like they did the last time? That would be my guess. So at this point, if we get somebody in here, Chef Pete or whomever, to run it for the 6 months, then when the rest of our residents come back home and we can have another discussion and get this up and running, I think that would be the best way to solve this. Yes, Chef Peters, if he gets in here and people like him, awesome. If they don't like him, is it going to be a problem getting him out? That's, so, I mean, either way, I don't care, but I just like to see something for full timers also, not just our winter owners. So,
Yeah.
it's just,
Thank you. Thank you, Donna.
Agreed, Ms. Donna. Thank you.
I like your hat, though, Donna. Regarding one of the things that I'm kind of hoping, just sort of if we could kind of get off of the number of people who responded to the survey. Because in reality, the number of people who responded was a decent number. It was a low number, but it was a decent number. Regardless of whether you want to be statisticians or not, or working on your PhD and determine whether it's statistically significant or not, it was a poll of how people felt at the time. Okay, so that's just my thought. Okay, next, who's up?
Hi, my name is Pat Sire. My lot is 1532. My question is, have you had a resident come forward to say they would like to submit a plan or a proposal? Have you put this? I haven't seen anything put out asking this question to any of the residents. So is this something you're thinking of doing, or is it being implemented? Have you got someone who's interested in writing a proposal?
Well, I'll respond to that. No, we have not specifically reached out to anyone. We know that in our community, there is one couple in particular who have been very actively running a restaurant in another HOA community. And we had asked prior, well, I'm not going to mention the name right now. I've asked prior management to really reach out to them and see whether, and this was pre-Bison Brothers, whether they would be interested. And they were never able to make that connection. Since Chef Peter made his presentation, I had spoken to that person. They reached out to me and they are used to working with volunteers. They see the pros and cons of working with volunteers, but they acknowledge that it really is not sustainable. They know Chef Peter. They have worked with an employee of theirs who then since went to work for Chef Peter and talks about what a wonderful employer he is. And this person would actually be interested in working with Chef Peter at Happy Trails, in particularly maybe in helping manage the volunteers. So that's the conversation that I know I've had with some people in the community. Does that answer your question?
Well, not really, because in our community, what I'm hearing you say, then there have been only 2 people that were interested in writing a proposal, and they don't. Okay, so how has that been communicated to the residents? That there is a possibility, if you guys would like to get together, write a proposal that is feasible, that would work, that the board would entertain that as
If I could interject, please, Barb.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's the whole point of my motion, ma'am. I can't see you, so forgive me. That was the whole point of my motion, is that to give the opportunity to those individuals that are volunteers that will want to write a proposal for a business plan. We have a couple of names of people that have responded to us, and of course, I would encourage management to reach out to them and say, per the board meeting, we would like you to write a proposal, a business plan on how you could make this successful. So that was part of my proposal, or my motion, I should say.
Okay, so that's what I was asking. The board is then going to actively present to the community that you have an opportunity here if you'd like to take advantage of that.
Yes.
And that will be done somehow via communication to residents, whether they're here or not, in a newsletter, something, a letter. Okay, all right. So, and then my last question, I hate taking the time.
Can I just say something just
Uh-huh.
on piggyback on what you're saying? There are a couple of people that have reached out to management. I will personally reach back out to them to see if they would like to write a proposal, and then we will also put together a blast so that it will go out to the community.
Oh, good, because I thought, well, maybe I would like to sit in on that. I don't know, but I don't know who the people are. Okay, so the other question I have is, and I'm only been at Happy Trails for about 3 years, so the chuck wagon hasn't been really up and running. But you said that October, November, and December, if I understood it correctly, that those were typical months that the chuck wagon did not make money. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, because if we think it's mostly seasonal, mostly they really don't open up until sort of the middle of October. A lot of seasonal residents may go home for Thanksgiving and not back until January. So the actual revenue brought in, October, November, and December is significantly less than the revenue that's brought in January, February, March. And it's the months of January, February, and March that help them potentially have a positive bottom line.
Okay, so with that information, I don't have an opinion one way or the other whether Chef Peters will be good or not. But
ma'am, we'll have to keep you to the time restrictions here, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Hi, Pat Gerber, lot 1159. I am in charge of the Desert Rats, and I wanted to tell you that I had a number of phone calls last night and this morning saying how much they enjoyed last night. But I've heard today and here, I have not had anybody else call me and complain about the food. $11 to charge for a meal and entertainment like we had last night, I don't think is a lot of money. Sorry. Chef Peter was very efficient when he came here. They got here on time. He set up. We got everybody through in about 20 minutes. The food was hot. The food wasn't greasy ground beef. It was regular shredded beef and chicken. I mean, he had some costly items in there. They weren't typical tacos, they're street tacos. I'm sorry that these folks did not enjoy it, but I think there are some in here who did enjoy their meal last night. I enjoyed mine. I
Thank you,
also
Pat.
wanted to say that I know a number of people who live over and where Chef Peter has his bistro,
There you go.
and I have talked with them, and they have been very happy with his catered meals over there that they do, their dining facility. They've had a very good experience. So, there are always two sides to something. I know this is a very complicated issue. I was a volunteer at Chuck Wagon. I enjoyed it very much. But to understand that there's money that we lose every year on the Chuck Wagon. And it seems like it's been a long time since it's actually made money. I don't know what the number, how long it's been, but I think we have to be in tune to that. And especially now that if we've lost Becky to help with volunteers, I think that's a huge issue. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Pat. And thank you, Pat, and all the rest of the Desert Rats. I know the Desert Rats do an awful lot to support each other during the summer. I think that's fantastic. Okay, yes, next.
Jack Reynolds, lot 269. First of all, I'd like to say I agree with Pat. Although I don't normally like Mexican food, but to me it was edible. I didn't think there was anything wrong with food. And I've eaten at Chef Peter's in Sun Village, and I've never had a bad meal there. And I do want to ask if we have Chef Peter come here, is it going to be like on a temporary basis for, like, did I hear somebody say 6 months and then we'll see? Or, I mean, he's not, we're going to give it a shot. Is that what I understand? Well, we gave those other people a shot, and I feel that those two guys that came here were shoved down our throat. I don't think we had enough input with that, but we're getting plenty of input with Chef Peters. And besides, people that uh, around here know Chef Peters because I think more than myself, a lot of people have gone over to Sun Village and eaten there, and it's very good. So I say we give them a shot. I think we've had enough input.
Thank you, Pat. I like where you say that it was edible. I think my husband has said some of my meals have not been edible, so it's good. All right, next. Next.
I'm Walls, lot 2369. How are you going to handle the activities? Because I know when I used to play pickleball, I never used it, but I can't play pickleball anymore. And all your activities, or a lot of them, are using that chuck wagon. And that's one of the reasons why we like is we have lots of activities.
And here.
I don't want to lose.
I have a hard time hearing you, ma'am. Can you hold the microphone closer to your mouth, please?
I'm sorry. Anyway.
Thank you.
For sure.
I'm going to go back to being the bad person here. The Chuck Wagon is not a meeting room. We have meeting rooms. We have this room to use for activities. We need to use the Chuck Wagon as a restaurant. I know I'm the bad person here, but I'll be the bad person. So
I'll just point out that I think we really need to look. I agree with Marie about the meeting rooms. We have a lot of people who are currently using meeting rooms, and I would believe that we would all encourage that to continue as best that can be. But one of the things that we know is that if we have the ability to raise some additional revenue, we would have additional opportunity to be remodeling some of our other meeting rooms are not as attractive, to refresh them, if you will, that might make other meetings more amenable to people meeting than the Chuck Wagon. Chef Peter continues to say, though, that people can use the rooms as long as when they leave, they clean it up. And as others have mentioned, some of the residents haven't. So it behooves the residents for being able to keep the meeting rooms as they are. Go ahead,
Barb,
Rebecca.
Barb, I'd like to clarify something. First and foremost, it's great if you can use the chuck wagon. However, let's understand those are not actual clubs that are using the chuck wagon. They are groups of people that are using it for dominoes, card playing. I get it, that's what they used to use for, but that is not a standard. There are plenty of other locations to be able to go to play dominoes, to play cards, to play nickels, whatever it is you would like to do, but those are not actual chartered clubs.
They're still residents and pay our monthly dues.
I will not argue that, ma'am. I will not argue that, but there are plenty of locations that we have on the property to be able to use for that specific event.
There are not enough. We found that out this last season when we had all our residents here and we were all stuck in clothes cupboards practically, room closets, trying to keep up with our activities that we enjoy here. There are not enough facilities here without that back section of the chuck wagon. I've been here 23 years.
Is
And
there
so
a
I think
reason that the pack cannot be used for that? And the pack is opened all the time, as far as I know.
So Barb, I think that a lot of, if I may speak to this here, being involved with some of the concerns of utilizing this space, I think it's important. And I don't think that, I think that ultimately all of this is being expressed. Everyone feels the same. We all want to enjoy this space, be able to utilize this space and work together. And I think that, being the residents' goal and being the board's role to work together here, our hopes are that whoever is in that chuck wagon location is going to work with the association and work with the community and the residents, because you're going to support him, whoever it may be in that location. But most importantly, I think that as long as we're working together to find this location, we know what the needs are of the community. We knew that they're not wrong. It was a challenge with the relocation of some of those card games into the back rooms. And activities did work very, very hard to try to get it all situated and divide out rooms. I think that we can most definitely brainstorm, determine good locations for these continued play, and we can overcome this together as long as we can all socially get together and make it right.
That's a good point, Mike. And
thank you, Mike.
Before I left, Darlene and I had actually met with Thelma. Thelma in activities just recently found that she had the ability to really.
A job people here don't even want. You either get beat up or you get praise, and I want to thank you, all of you, for what you do. You keep us halfway, and I've only been here 3 years. I live here full time. I don't do a lot of the activities. I do some of the activities here, but the thing with the restaurant, I still think it should be a majority of the vote. I mean, that's the way our democracy is. You win or lose. So if the majority doesn't want it, they shouldn't have it. But if the majority wants it, they should have it. And the rest of us that lose, because you don't win every time. However you win or lose, you got to accept it and try to support it and help it through these times. Because this is about us. This is the whole community. So that's the only input I have.
Thank you. Mike, I just want to piggyback on what you said, that was about the activities. Thelma just recently realized that her computer system or software program for booking the rooms has the ability for her to do sort of a deep dive and analysis of the rooms. So she was then working, showing me some of the reports she can get. And the thought being that there's the possibility that maybe we could be more efficient in how we schedule our rooms and actually be able to accommodate more groups meeting in various rooms by looking at that software program. So more to come on that. So go ahead. I see you.
Hi, my name is Cheryl, lot 642. Thank you, board. By the way, I was a president of board, and it was a horrible job, by the way. So, but I admire everybody's passion in this room, and passion is what makes Happy Trail great. And I'm so happy that I moved here. But there's also a business side to everything too. And I'm just saying this as a neutral party, and for the woman who came up and talked about her activities, that's amazing passion. But you also have to look at when you have a space that's set up like a restaurant, and then you have this room that's set up as a gathering place, you can't swap them. So we can't have a restaurant, whether it's Chef Peters or somebody else, we can't ask him to say, well, come do your restaurant here so we can use the chuck wagon to play games. It just doesn't work that way. But there, I'm sure the board, if everyone puts their heads together, can find places for people to do these great activities and to make gathering. But when you have a dedicated spot that is set up as a restaurant, the only thing that makes sense, I'm not saying this to try to sway you for Chef Peters, because I expressed last month, I do like Chef Peters. I don't like all his food, and I've told him that, but I like some of his food and most of his food. But when you have a dedicated space that brings in revenue, you have to use it to bring in revenue. That's a business perspective. Well, it's just finances.
Thank you. Who's
It's
next?
all of them from here.
Okay, I'll go through some of the things in the chat, back to where it was. Nice to have it open in the summer. Professional restaurants proven successful in similar very communities, willing to give us a shot. Let's move forward. Allowing catering would offset any loss in revenue during the off season. Food, again, some people felt the food last night was delicious. As we said, there's always people that like it and people that don't. Again, people acknowledge there might be other places for games to occur. Another person said, really, we need the money. Other sources of revenue, we should be able to cut costs to. And the board and management have done that. Do want to acknowledge the things that our management team has done to cut costs, particularly in the front office area. Talking about maybe charging the fellowship for using the PAC. The fellowship does give us a fairly hefty donation, though.
Yes, they do.
Food was excellent. I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling through here. Person said previously when issues occurred with the chuck wagon and a decision was made, the residents didn't like there was a dramatic drop in attendance at the chuck wagon, fears that this would happen again. I acknowledge there's always that potential. It's my personal opinion, and back to the fact that it's the heart of the community where friendships are made. I saw that and I know that occurs. I believe that Chef Peter has the ability to drop more people in. More people than are currently using the chuck wagon, I think would want to come. The association needs to be supported by the residents. If not, nothing can be successful, both in the chuck wagon as well as communities. Yeah. Okay, a few rooms for Domino's. Is there something else there, Mike?
Oh, it looks like you've got it all here, Barb.
Okay,
Call
all right.
for the vote, please.
Yeah, I will call for that. Anything else from the board members? I'm just trying to get back to my agenda. Excuse me here. Before we move forward. Seeing none. So the motion on the table is to move forward with developing a contract with Chef Peter for between 6 and 9 months, simultaneously this fall asking a group of residents to put forth a formal business plan.
Correct.
With that, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marie Beschen,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Steve Deal,
No.
Cindy Evans,
Yes, with the understanding that the residents will have an opportunity to submit a proposal and have it given serious consideration.
okay, thank you, and Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. So we'll be asking that Darlene meet with Chef Peter and we can figure out starting the negotiation process for the contract, and then more news to come. Next item on the agenda is a motion regarding additional trash bins. Can I get a motion to proceed?
I'll move to approve the moving forward with obtaining proposals for additional trash bins.
I'll second that. Let's have the conversation. Mike, do you want to give us a little feedback on this?
Yeah, so as most of the resort may know already, got a robot here. I don't know what's going on. Aliens. Soft.
And maybe it's the ghost.
So we've had recent understanding that our recycling services have came to an end, or close to an end, especially with our paper and cardboard. That was 13 dumpsters within our resort here. That makes a big impact on our trash and recycling services, and what we wanted to do for this segue into conversation, as we have in many months ago discussed this issue. There's going to be additional rates. We weren't paying for the services, the recycling services that we had from Vista Paper. Vista Paper was doing this recycling service to profit off of it, and we've got to a point in our economy they're not profiting any longer, and unfortunately they just came to us and said it's time for these to go. We do currently still have one roll-off container from Parks and Sons that is plastic and glass. We're not paying for that dumpster. We also have a roll-off dumpster for metal and aluminum. We're also not paying for that dumpster. We are making just a smidgen of profit on that metal, the recyclables, the plastic and glass. The concern is the use of that. If there's contaminated items in recyclables, these companies are being charged for these recyclables. They're no longer recyclables. At that point in time, they're going to the landfill, and these companies are being charged for it. And if we, for one, if we don't maintain that properly, we're going to lose that service as well. For two, what we brought to the board here today is additional costs for additional dumpsters. And the problem is you're not going to find a recycling service that is not going to charge us. Parks and Sons is happy to provide us recycling services, but they're going to be at cost. So we have to look at this in a spectrum of the whole location and determine what's going to be best. And I think that's the discussion today, is which direction do we go? Is this something we phase towards, of course, in season, have more discussion, but what do we do with this location? There are concerns of the sustainability and the control of that location. We do have a lot of concerns and improper disposal. It's gotten better from what it was a short while ago. However, we do have a unbelievable cost that the association looks at that is not included in our pass-throughs for the disposal of those locations. And I think that's something that the board and the association will have to definitely look into deep.
Roberta, do you have any questions regarding this motion?
I do not. I'm very disheartened. I guess that's not really the right word. I'm very upset with the fact of the garbage I'm seeing left out there when there's no dumpsters. So I'm very disappointed in some of the residents, and I don't know who they are. But no, I have no questions with regard to the motion.
Steve?
As long as all we're going to do is request prices, I have no objection to the motion. I hope all of the residents understand that our documents say the only trash that we are responsible for is the can in front of your residence, or in the case of the villas, the 3 rollbacks that are provided. We provided this service for years, and we continue to have the same issues. And Roberta is much kinder than I am. And the reality is, it doesn't matter how many dumpsters we have, people still can't seem to follow the damn rule and put stuff in the dumpster, not on the ground, and not see how high you can stack it. This is really frustrating. And it's time for some of our people to grow up and start acting like adults. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. Cindy, what are your comments about the proposal, which is to, or the motion, which is moving forward, getting proposals for additional trash bins?
I'm not sure much more can be said. I think I'm with Steve, as long as we're just getting proposals and not approving additional trash cans at this time.
Thank you. Marie?
Well, I've been on the trash can problem for years, even before I was on the board. It's a problem. We've tried the gate, we've tried new signs, we've tried education. I don't know what else we can do. You know, I've kind of touted, let's take all the bins and get rid of all the bins. Um, if clapping is an indication, I guess I've got some fans. Um, that's definitely a consideration. We're spending around $150,000 a year in
170,
and it's not solving it. We've been getting a few emails from residents saying how the trash, and now we're coming on monsoon season, how the trash has been blowing into their yards because people are leaving the bags of trash and the broken down cardboard stuff on the ground. So now it's been blowing into the residents' yards, you know, that live in package 8. And my heart goes out to them. This is not fun. You know, people aren't putting trash into trash. You know, I blame it all on Amazon. It's all you Amazon.
Guilty.
I've been hearing that it there should the in-ground containers should hold enough for 2 people. You know, I think the solution should be to take away all the trash bins, but that's my vote.
Becca?
I have to agree with Marie. There is no other place near us that have trash bins. Traditions doesn't have them. Grand doesn't have them. And where does their trash end up? Or at least Traditions, I know. It ends in our trash bins that we're paying for. And I'm sorry that they're not doing the recycling anymore, especially the paper and the cardboard, because I thought that was a great thing. But at this point, I'm not in favor of really even looking for proposals for the trash bins.
I just want to give the residents an update on the expenses for our current trash in fiscal year ending April 2017, excuse me. We spent $144,000. Our year end this last year, we spent $177,000 for trash. And I don't have in front of me the actual the monthly expenses that we get, but we get charged per bin, and we also get a mileage charge and a weight charge. So as the more trash occurs, it's costing us more money.
Yes.
And even though we get, go ahead.
The month of November this year was $7,500 just for the dumpsters at the end of the boulevard.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. And so as Steve said, we have to live within our CCNRs, and the only thing we are required, the community is required to pay for out of your HOA fees is your in-ground dumpsters. And for the villas, they don't have those, so we'd have to have dumpsters for that. The stuff down at the end of Happy Trails Boulevard is a plus, and we've been benefited from it. The recycling, we've benefited from it for those people who feel the need to recycle, and for excess stuff. But as what we're seeing is people are putting all their furniture in there. People are putting all the remodeling stuff in there, things that all the rest of us pay to have done, either for a Goodwill to pick up or us to take it or something like that. And all of that is costing the community, and it's costing more and more. But even worse than that, both Steve and Roberta said, and many residents have said to us, they just get tired of the fact of how people are leaving everything out. If you look just even at the recycling center, once those bins are full, even though it says don't leave them on the ground, the whole one wall is completely full of stuff. So it's kind of gotten out of hand. So I'm not in favor right now of getting any additional proposal for it. So anything from any resident in the ballroom, and then I'll look at the stuff that's in the chat.
Have several people aligned for commenting.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, Terry Bader, lot 953. I think the community, people are extremely spoiled here with those dumpsters. I mean, I've never seen a community where you can just arbitrarily, whatever you want to throw out, you bring it down there. Right now, I mean, I visit down there and there's somebody, today there's a huge drive shaft from a Toyota in there, okay, that somebody has literally thrown out, but it could have gone into the metal bin. People constantly throw out old barbecue grills, put it in the metal bin. That's going to go away too, the metal bin, profitable on that. Also, people.
We actually make money off the metal bin.
I understand, but if it keeps going in the trash and the metal bin is not full, and I don't understand how contractors are allowed to use our dumpsters. If you have a project at your house, whether it's flooring, roofing, whatever the case may be, unfortunately, he's going to have to now figure in what it's going to cost him to dump that stuff. And unfortunately, the homeowner's going to have to pay for it. But for him arbitrarily to go down there and just dump carpeting and all these products everybody else pays to take away, it's going to cost us a fortune. If right now at this point, with those dumpsters there, once it starts, it's going to be a nightmare. Literally a nightmare. There's two giant doors in there right now, which are filling up one dumpster, completely full because they were put in there at an angle where you can't get anything in there. So I think people are going to have to change the way they do business in here when it comes to trash and get used to how everybody else on the planet lives when you're throwing out your trash. And one can for two people, twice a week pickup. Who's creating all this trash? We need all these dumpsters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Pat Gerber, lot 1159. I'm a person who likes to recycle, so really, I'm upset with the fact that we will not have that opportunity, but I do understand what's going on down there because it is exasperating. I have a question. I have actually two things, which I'd like to address maybe to Mike. Is it that we cannot have the dumpsters for recycling? Can we pay for it and get at least a break? And since we're recycling at a cheaper rate than if we would get another dumpster? Or do we need then to have a recycling service to come and take our recycling away? How do we, I don't want to in the trash.
Right.
I mean,
So
that's the bottom line.
sure.
I don't know what our options are.
So Parks and Sons can offer us recycling service for our our paper and our cardboard, what we're losing.
What about glass and plastic?
That's still here. That's remaining.
That is remaining.
That is remaining. That hasn't moved. That's through Parks and Sons now. So the only thing we're losing is the paper and the cardboard as of right this moment. But we do, yeah, they will offer us a reasonable rate for recycling. I guess the fear is at this point in time, how do we manage that? The control of that, because even prior to it was out of control. We had the problem where they weren't picking up frequently enough, and they weren't willing to pick up frequently enough, and we probably could suppress some of that with Sons, but it's going to be at an extenuated rate for the extra pickup, extra things. So we're gonna need to get some numbers on this and look at some options. If that's something the board would like to see, we'll absolutely do so. But we have some very preliminary numbers right now. We kind of reached out to Parks and Sons, said, hey, is this something you can do? Technically, yes. But we have to weigh our options. But they did stress very heavily that they're not going to be interested in putting up with contamination. That's even meaning the plastic bags that end up going in the plastic in the glass. they're paying for that, and they're going to stop that service if we cannot stop contaminating that location. It is strictly plastic and glass. Uh, and that's it. They won't take the trash bags. They won't take, and we try to put out brochures, and your communications committee has been trying to get the communication across and try to get some decent signs in that location to talk about these concerns, and it just hasn't improved. And I think that's my biggest concern. How do we get that under control? And how do we make an impact there?
Okay, one other thing too, in regards to contractors, I do believe that contractors are probably the biggest. um,
Con- Contractors are absolutely the
Constantly
biggest
you see,
concern.
not only that, but the landscape. He did all the talking, not me. I didn't do any of the talking.
No.
Take it out of his time.
No, you're right.
But
And to
but
speak,
if there's some way we can stop the contractors, I mean, even landscapers, you see trees in there for,
this is
you
the
know.
problem. This is absolutely the problem. We try to regulate the contractors in a sense where they can't utilize our services on their own. But what happened is when we tried to put some enforcement on the contractors and say you can't utilize these areas, the owners stepped forth and said, it's my contractor, it's my garbage. I'm hiring them to take that down to that dumpster. And our current governing documents, I can't challenge that.
Thank you.
So Mike, the motion on the table is regarding
Sure.
obtaining additional
21.
proposals.
A lot of problem we have is a lot of times with the snowbirds that go back home, they're trying to get rid of stuff. And so they don't want to take it to the Goodwill, or they don't want to do that. So they pile it all up. I don't know if there's a solution to that. That would help a little bit maybe, because people just want to get rid of stuff when they leave for the summer.
This is Barbara. I acknowledge that. I also say, though, that there's a lot of people that are putting their remodeling in. When they buy a new home, a lot of times the home is sold as furnished. And so they get rid of the furniture and then do the remodeling. So it's not just the snowbirds, it's the entire community that are adding to it. Just recall that the motion on the table, and that's what we should be asking questions about, is obtaining proposals for additional trash bins. It's not really to solve the trash bin problem. So go ahead, Mitch. I know you've got experience in the trash industry.
1621. He was in the garbage business for 27 years. And when he talked about signs, they put 2 signs out there that say, do not leave garbage on the ground, make sure it's in the dumpster. And I had asked for signs out there that said, what could go in the dumpster? You know, what metal goes in the metal and that kind of thing. They never put anything up like that, so people don't know.
I have to disagree, Maynard. I think that we've had this conversation. I
have
very much.
And like I said, in the garbage business for 27 years. Signs aren't the cure.
Correct.
Locking the place up isn't a cure. But I'm saying it helps
It does.
people that want to recycle and know where. I mean, I've had people ask me, where's the plastic and glass go? There's no signs there saying plastic and glass recyclable. Out on the road? That's what I'm saying. There's no signs on the road. But I mean, the same thing, you know, like now we won't get cardboard and paper picked up. Okay. Why can't we put a sign down there that says the cardboard, break down your cardboard and paper goes in the roll off instead of filling the garbage cans there full of it? Although I think that the roll offs are the same as the dumpsters, we get paid for garbage dumping because they don't separate anything. And when I first got here, I was told that one roll off was for uh, uh, yard waste and one was for demolition. They tell you, well, whatever you want in there, the big stuff goes in there. So, you know, we need to get some signs up.
Any other questions or comments that haven't been asked yet?
Karen Lacey, lot 2340. I live in section 8. It's been very interesting living there. There's a lot of issues that I don't think the board has been aware of. And recently, because I walk a lot, On windy days, my morning walk, I walk behind the dumpsters on the right of way. You wouldn't believe the trash from Happy Trails that blows into our neighborhoods. Not our neighborhoods. We do have trash in our neighborhood on a frequent basis. Now it's going into Grand. It goes into Tradition. And one morning I was shocked at the amount of trash that I saw in Traditions in their grassy knoll. When I was walking back, I saw a neighbor in Grand throwing our trash back over the right of way. Now, we're not just trashing up our area. We have two neighborhood communities that we're trashing up. The other issue that's very shocking to me is I now have seen rats down on the north section where I live. They scurry around the dumpsters. My neighbor, I'm very sorry to say, lives across the street, has trapped 2 rats, and he said there's another one running free. I am not a happy camper at the garbage situation. I think we as owners need to be responsible for our own trash. We have it picked up twice a week. Fold up your cardboard. You can take care of your own self. I was looking at our financial statement for projection 22-23. I was shocked to see the amount of $200,000+ for maintaining a garbage dump here at Happy Trails. I'm asking you as a board to really consider all these other issues. As I walk, I see people constantly throwing paint, golf cart tires, motor oil. It's just ridiculous. And I'm surprised the people will come and pick up our trash because it's contaminated. So I think we need to take a good hard look at this, and I'm all for getting rid of dumpsters.
Thank you very much. What I'm going to do is, I think I've gotten a lot of comments here to call for the vote. I believe that regarding the motion on the table, which is to move forward with obtaining proposals on getting additional trash bins, I think that the board has heard enough comments to weigh on whether we're going to approve this motion or not. We know this is a spicy topic, not as much as the chuck wagon, but let's go ahead and have the board vote on the motion on the table. So the motion on the table is to move forward with obtaining proposals for additional trash bins. All in favor of approving the motion as read, say aye.
Quiet.
Crickets? All opposed, say nay. Nay?
Nay.
Motion, it does not pass. So we will not be moving forward with getting proposals for additional trash bins. I do want to let the community know that the board is quite aware of the problem of this. And I've made a commitment to my fellow board members that we will definitely address a formal solution to the trash bins by October board meeting, if not at the August board meeting. We've read in some of the comments that people had in the chat, and there might be some good ideas there. So more to come on that. Let's move forward. I'm assuming, Becca, could you correct me if I'm wrong, that the activities budget is not ready to be approved, or are we moving ahead with that?
That it is not ready. The budget committee did not approve it.
Okay, great. So the next thing on our agenda was a couple of variances. And I understand that the first variance has been removed for the moment, that the residents want that tabled. The second is a request for variance regarding a 21-foot thing. Can I'll entertain that motion so we can discuss?
I'll move to approve owner's request for variance to allow a 21-foot Class B for lot 1753.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion and second to allow the person owner at lot 1753 to their request to have us, excuse me, allow 21-foot Class B. From the letter that we received from this, it sounds as if the lady used to have a Class A. I'm sorry, for clarification, this lot is in the ranch, correct?
That is correct.
They live in the ranch. So we've got a couple of issues for folks that live in the ranch. In that, as everyone knows, we've got rules and regs, we've got DRC guidelines, we have bylaws, and we have CCNRs. And as a board, we can make changes to the CCNRs and the bylaw. We cannot make changes to the CCNRs and the bylaws. We can make change to the rules and regs and DRC guidelines. CCNRs must be changed by a vote of the residents, and there's certain periods with that. A higher level, though, for our community in the ranch is that a ranch for recreational vehicles may only have Class A's. And that's in the PAD. And that is approved at the city level when our community was developed. And that would require a very high percentage approval from the residents for us to make changes to that PAD statement that they require. If you have an RV in there, it has to be a Class A. So typically we can't allow a 21-foot in there because it isn't allowed in the PAD. So I'll start with that. The second comment is we only make exceptions for 21-footers, a Class B variance, excuse me, if it is the only residence vehicle allowed. And it's my understanding that that is not. So any other questions or comments from the board to get clarification on the request from the resident? Go ahead, Roberta.
So I guess my question is, I'm even surprised this has been brought to the board. This is clearly stated in our PAD. People in the ranch know that you have to have a Class A. This should not be up for discussion. The DRC turned it down. It should not be up for us to vote on at all.
Steve?
I'm ready to call the question.
Well, let's get the rest of the board input. Cindy?
Other questions?
Okay. Marie or Becca?
No. No comments.
Okay, all right. So any questions or comments from the residents who are in the room? I see that there was the rest of the Happy Trails only allow one RV per lot, and there is more presently in this.
No questions here, Barb.
Okay. So I'll call for the vote then. So the motion on the table then is to approve the owner's request for a variance to allow a 21-foot Class B in lot 1753. All in favor of approving that motion, say aye. Crickets. All in favor of not approving that motion, say nay. Nay.
Nay.
Motion does not pass. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Spirited conversation all around. Truly appreciate the community's active participation at the meeting today. We do know as a board that the issue with the chuck wagon is a very complicated issue, and that we hope moving forward that there's going to be a positive outcome for all involved. And we're committed to getting the volunteers an opportunity to come up with a business plan that could be financially viable. So I don't have any other announcements. I do, I'm sorry. I do want to acknowledge that we lost a dear friend, Ron Woodward, excuse me. And we are thinking of his family all the time. As far as the replacement for Ron's position, we will do our normal procedure whenever there is a vacancy on the board during the summer, that we do not fill that position until October when all the board members are present so we can do an interview. So do expect that we are hoping that there are people in the community who will apply for Ron's position. And that about the 1st of October, we'll be sending out an announcement asking for interested residents to apply for the position. And the board will be interviewing for that within that 1st or 2nd week of October. So with that, Darlene or Mike, do you have any announcements for the community?
Other than NC2 pool will be open Monday. And if you haven't looked at it yet, it looks beautiful over there. The paving is going well. Mike, do you want to say anything about the paving?
Paving is coming to an end shortly. The parking lot has been seal coated. Villas will be completed Monday and Tuesday. So we should have our asphalt done here within the next couple days, and be done and out of the way for this summer. It'll be good and safe, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your summer. That's it. Thanks, Barb.
Great, thank you. Thank you all very much.
See you in a minute.
Now, do we have to crawl out of this and go back into the other one again?
Yeah.
Yes, you do, Steve. Yes, you do.
I want to go work.